Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started. The past 1 week has been sheer horror for Hindus in Bangladesh. They were attacked by angry mobs. Homes, temples and puja pandals were set on fire. Lives were lost. It all started with the appearance of a copy of the Quran in a Durga Puja pandal. When the first reports came in, we told you this was a conspiracy. Our sources in Dhaka said this was part of a plan to disrupt much bigger, we can tell you. And for such violence to be not repeated, Dhaka will have to crack down on the source. Pakistan-backed Islamist groups like the Jamaat. On Gravitas tonight, we'll discuss all of this. Also on the show, India hits a major vaccine milestone. 1 billion shots given. That's 2 times more doses than America, 5 times more than Japan, 9 times more than Germany, and 10 times that of France. What's happening in Pakistan? It stays on the FATF grey list for terror financing. Its Prime Minister is being accused of selling gifts from foreign leaders, and its diplomats are caught on mic gossiping about its ministers. In Britain, members of Parliament raise a major concern. Women are being spiked with needles in nightclubs. An investigation has been ordered. And another disease outbreak in a wet market. China is not only not shutting them down, it's making them cool with Prada packaging. We'll tell you all about it. We begin as always with Gravitas Global Headlines.
A massive leak of documents reveals that countries are trying to change an important scientific report on ways to tackle climate change. Saudi Arabia, Japan and Australia are among the nations that are asking the UN to play down the urgency in moving away from fossil fuels. The United Nations says it has set up a trust fund to provide urgently needed cash for the people of Afghanistan. The UN will use a system that taps into donor funds that were frozen since the Taliban seized Kabul. China's Evergrande Group secures an extension on a defaulted bond in a respite to the developer. This after shares in the company had plunged earlier due to a failure of a unit sale deal, which had created fears that the company will collapse. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has authorized all 3 COVID jabs available in the country as a mix-and-match shot. Now anyone eligible for a booster can get any of the available brands of vaccines, be it Pfizer, Moderna or Johnson & Johnson. The United Kingdom agrees to a trade deal with New Zealand, which it says will benefit consumers and businesses. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the deal will open up the New Zealand job market to British professionals. The deal will cut tariffs on clothing, buses and wine. Employees at streaming giant Netflix joined protesters outside their Los Angeles office in anger over a new Dave Chappelle comedy special that has sparked accusations that Netflix is trampling transgender rights and profiting from hate speech. Protests continue on the streets of Sudan's capital, Khartoum. Thousands gather outside the presidential palace to demand the dissolution of the embattled transitional government as the country grapples with the biggest crisis of a 2-year-old transition from autocracy. At least 88 people have died due to heavy floods in Nepal. Days of heavy rainfall have triggered landslides across the mountainous country. The rescue work has been hampered as roads remain cut off. Manchester United rallied back from 2 goals down to beat Italian side Atalanta 3-2 in the UEFA Champions League. Trailing 2-0 at Old Trafford, second-half goals from Marcus Rashford, Harry Maguire and Cristiano Ronaldo sealed the dramatic win and eased the pressure on United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Japanese golfer Hiroshi Iwata has taken a surprise first-round lead at the PGA Tour's Zozo Championship. World number 161, Iwata shot a 7-under 63 in Chiba, Japan for a one-stroke lead over compatriot and reigning Masters champion Hideki Matsuyama, as well as Chilean Joaquin Niemann.
What damage can one man do? A lot. He can destroy the secular fabric of a whole nation. He can trigger communal riots. He can turn neighbors and friends against each other. One man did all of this in Bangladesh, 35-year-old Iqbal Hussain. The police in Bangladesh have identified him from CCTV footage. It's on your screen now. The date is October the 13th. Iqbal is first seen entering a mosque in Comilla in Bangladesh. He comes out with a copy of the Quran. Then he heads to a puja pavilion. We see him going inside with the Quran, but when he comes out, the book is gone. Instead, he's carrying a mace, the traditional weapon of the Hindu god Hanuman. We all know what happened next from local accounts. The Quran was found on the idol's lap. The locals immediately called the police. They came, they asked around. All of this entire investigation was streamed live on Facebook. The internet did the rest. What followed was days of trauma and pain. Hindu neighborhoods were attacked, Hindu shops were vandalized, houses were set on fire, at least 7 people were killed in the violence. Bangladesh had to deploy their elite commandos, the RAB or the Rapid Action Battalion. Right now things are calm, but it's a fragile calm. Bangladesh now faces the most difficult task, reckoning with the riots, investigating what happened and unearthing the real conspiracy. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is saying all the right things. Today she tried to rally the country on religious tolerance.
What happened in Comilla is very saddening. Islam teaches us to respect humans. Everyone has a right to practice their own religion. One must not disrespect others' religion. This is not what Islam teaches.
450 people have been arrested so far. At least 72 cases have been filed. But this goes beyond individuals in the mob. There is a conspiracy to tear Bangladesh's secular fabric. The Quran inside a puja pavilion. The live streaming of the police investigation, the hate campaign on social media, all of it cannot be a coincidence. Clearly, there is a group that wants to create trouble. Is Iqbal Hussain part of this group? We don't know that. But here's what the Bangladesh Foreign Ministry says, and I'm quoting from what they say. It's regrettable that the local elements that had opposed Bangladesh's independence 50 years ago are still propagating their toxic narratives to instigate violence, hatred, and bigotry. Who are these violent elements? Most reports point to the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh. They're the ones who sided with Pakistan, remember, during the Liberation War. Their objective is to create an Islamic state. Strict Sharia, no minority rights, perpetual hatred. That's what they want, the Jamaat-e-Islami. In 2013, Bangladesh banned the Jamaat. Many of their leaders were arrested. Some were executed for war crimes from 1971. So how is this terror outfit still surviving? How did they orchestrate nationwide riots? Because they had outside support. The Jamaat is a proxy of Pakistan. They get ideological and logistical support from the ISI. Think of them as Bangladesh's Taliban. Their plan has 2 parts. Number 1, to embarrass the Sheikh Hasina government, destroy her secular credentials. And number 2, to drive a wedge between India and Bangladesh. Fortunately, neither country is falling into this trap. Bangladesh's ruling party took out a rally in support of the Hindu community. The civil society is defending Bangladesh's secularism. The best example is this man, Mashrafe Murtaza, the former captain of Bangladesh's cricket team. Let me tell you what he wrote on social media last week, and this is very important. Listen carefully. We witnessed 2 losses yesterday. One was Bangladesh cricket teams, which was painful. The other was of the whole of Bangladesh. One that has shattered my heart. This is not the red and green we wanted to see. So many dreams, so many hard-earned victories lost in a flash. It's perfectly summed up, I would say. This is a crucial moment in history for Bangladesh. Islamist extremism is on the rise in South Asia. Afghanistan has fallen to them. Pakistan is sponsoring them. And their new target is clearly Bangladesh. How can the government keep these extremists at bay? With a complete investigation, the crackdown must not end with Iqbal Hussain. It must tackle the larger problem. The support coming from Pakistan and the nexus of Islamist extremism in South Asia. If not, this is not done, the cycle of violence will repeat. And we must also ask ourselves, how long before Bangladesh's civil society surrenders? From Bangladesh, let's turn to Pakistan, which has received another shade of grey from the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force. For the fourth year in a row, Islamabad has made it to the FATF grey list for terror financing. We'll tell you what the FATF has said in a bit. But first, let's take a moment to appreciate Pakistan's consistency here. We must. It's not easy living up to expectations for such a long time. Every year, when the FATF assembles, we expect Pakistan to remain on the list. And Islamabad proves us right every single time. 4 years. And it hasn't lost its spot on the grey list. The Financial Action Task Force says Pakistan continues to finance terror, it continues to support money laundering, and it has failed to prosecute designated terrorists, so it will be subjected to increased monitoring and could remain on the grey list till April 2022. Now, this is a significant setback. It shows how Pakistan's salience in the West is in constant decline. It shows how it's constantly being held accountable for its poisonous policies. Is Pakistan making amends? Doesn't look like it. Pakistan has a reputation of saying one thing and doing the exact opposite. It promised to crack down on global terrorists, the likes of Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, Zakiur Rahman Lakhvi. But last we checked, they're all having a field day in Pakistan, expanding their networks under state protection. Since January 2021, 8 terror camps have reopened in Pakistan. 30-odd terrorists have infiltrated India. Hundreds more have infiltrated into Afghanistan. New terror alliances are being formed. New warnings of jihad are being issued. So forget the grey list. Pakistan should ideally be in the black list for its failures. And speaking of failures, Pakistani diplomats are also living up to expectations. In the past, they've been caught stealing wallets. Not making this up. Pakistani diplomats have been caught stealing wallets and shoplifting chocolates from supermarkets. This time, they've been caught on mic, bad-mouthing their own minister. And this happened in Russia. At the ongoing Moscow format talks, regional leaders have gathered in Moscow to discuss Afghanistan. Pakistan also sent its diplomats to secure some funds for the Taliban. What they did instead was poke fun at Minister Shireen Mazari. And I will tell you what they said, but first you must know the context. Now, this is a story straight out of those cringe TV soaps. Shireen Mazari is Pakistan's Minister for Human Rights. Yes, they have one. She's quite a flamboyant figure in Pakistan, known for her boldness and unique style. But Shireen Mazari does not get along too well with her daughter. So much so that the two are fighting in public. On Wednesday, Mazari's daughter, Iman Zainab Mazari, posted this tweet. She accused Pakistan government of letting sorcerers run the country through witchcraft. What is she talking about? This is an indirect attack on Imran Khan's current wife, Bushra Bibi. She's a highly mysterious figure, a self-proclaimed mystic who is often accused of practicing black magic. Why is that? To strengthen her husband's control on the country. Well, that's what her critics say. This is 21st century power politics in Pakistan, complete with black magic. This controversial and bizarre debate has been playing out for quite some time now. Shireen Mazari's daughter addressed it on social media. The mother did not hold back. She retaliated with a counter post. She said that she was ashamed that her daughter would resort to such quote-unquote low, personalized, unsubstantiated attacks. The exchange went viral, and the post reached Moscow, where Pakistani diplomats could not help but discuss it. The problem is, they forgot to switch off their mics. You must watch this.
ठीक है अब आगे माँ ने उसके ऊपर लिखा है अपनी बेटी के ऊपर कमेंट किया लेकिन लोग कहते हैं आपस में पता है ना माँ बेटी की आपस में बातचीत का ये मतलब को पता भी नहीं है क्योंकि ओरिजिनली मेरी तो बहुत दोस्त रही है तो ये तो काफी लेफ्ट की थी बट ये है कि शुरू से इनके स्टाइल यही है एग्रेसिव शुरू से हवाला अच्छा है
You heard that. This has been her style all along, he says. Aggressive. Full points for entertainment, 0 for professionalism. Diplomats are supposed to resolve quarrels, not gossip about them like teenagers. Perhaps this is what happens when you give more importance to funding terrorism than education. You end up broke, both intellectually and financially. Which brings us to Pakistan's Prime Minister himself, Imran Khan Niazi. Do you know what he is up to? He is selling gifts that he received from heads of state. At least that's what Pakistan's opposition leaders are saying. They've accused Prime Minister Imran Khan of selling a precious watch. Selling a watch that he received from the prince of a Gulf nation. No names have been taken, only that the watch was apparently sold in Dubai for $1 million US. Is that true? Well, we don't know. The Pakistan government has been asked to clarify. Whatever be the case, we do not blame Imran Khan. When your time is not right, who needs a watch for reminders? And speaking of time, India has administered 1 billion doses of Wuhan virus vaccines in just over 9 months. 1 billion. Today, India is celebrating what's being called a vaccine century, 100 crore shots. India has administered 2 times more doses than America, 5 times more than Japan, 9 times the doses administered by Germany, and 10 times that of France. Our next report tells you how India achieved this remarkable feat.
आज 21 अक्टूबर 2021 का ये दिन इतिहास में दर्ज हो गया है। भारत ने अब से कुछ दूर पहले ही 100 करोड़ वैक्सीन डोज का आंकड़ा पार कर लिया है।
India has hit a vaccine century. The country is celebrating 1 billion doses of the Wuhan virus vaccine. It's a remarkable number, and numbers alone can do justice to this story. 9 months is how long it took for India to reach this milestone. That's 278 days, with an average of 3.6 million doses per day. This is the total population of India. 75% of Indian adults, or 707 million Indian adults, have already received at least a single dose of the vaccine. That's double the population of the United States. 30% of the Indian adults are fully vaccinated. That's 291 million people, or 4 times the population of the United Kingdom. How did India achieve this feat? India is using Covaxin, Covishield and Sputnik V. Most of the vaccine centres are run by the Government of India. Anyone can walk in and get themselves jabbed for free. India is spending nearly $5 billion to vaccinate its people.
मैं देश की वैक्सीन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंपनियां, वैक्सीन ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में जुड़े कर्मयोगियां, वैक्सीन लगाने में जुटे हेल्थ सेक्टर के प्रोफेशनल्स, सभी का खुले मन से, हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूं।
As India celebrates the 1 billion milestone, it has not forgotten the frontline workers who made this feat possible.
It's like a festival for us as 1 billion doses have been administered.
If we are now to draw up a chart based on the number of doses administered per country, the order would look like this. China, India, followed by the United States, Brazil, Japan, Indonesia, Turkey, Mexico, Germany, France, Russia and the United Kingdom. As of the 21st of October, India has administered 2 times more doses than America. 5 times more doses than Japan, 9 times the doses administered by Germany, and 10 times that of France.
The country has attained a unique achievement in the world by administering the fastest 100 crore COVID-19 cases.
Who would have thought India would come this far in this short a time? India experienced a devastating second wave, an overwhelming death toll. The healthcare system was under immense stress. There were shortages and supply bottlenecks. And yet, here you have India turning the table around on the virus from China. To be fair, India still has a long way to go. The priority is to vaccinate those under 18. They make up 41% of India's population. And India still does not have a jab for them. The 3-dose Zycov-D has been approved, but it is yet to make it to the market. Target number 2 is to vaccinate the entire population. If India wants to reach that milestone by the year end, it needs to administer 12 million doses every day. That's till the 31st of December. Here's wishing India a successful over. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
I want you to imagine a very specific scenario. The weekend is coming up. You and your friends decide to hit the nightclub. You get there, you have a nice time. Next thing you know, you wake up in your bed. How did you get there? What happened last night? You have absolutely no recollection. All you feel is a searing pain in your body. I know it sounds horrifying. Now, what if I told you that this is not some made-up scenario? It is happening to multiple women in Britain. More than a dozen cases have been reported. All of them follow the same pattern. They remember entering a nightclub, but nothing after that. The next day they wake up in bed with horrible body pain. What's happening here? Most of the victims think that they were spiked with a needle. Let me tell you how one of them described it. The next morning I felt my leg and examined it to a further extent. I touched the part where I was in most pain and I found a pinprick. I had been spiked. I have another account for you. This is what it says. The injection left me unable to walk without the help of someone else, and I could barely string a sentence together. Thankfully, I was not alone and had a friend with me. What do you make of this? What are the experts saying? Well, they're as confused as the victims. Some of them have dismissed the needle theory. Their argument is this: it's hard to plunge a needle into someone in a crowded club. For starters, they would feel pain, they would probably scream. Plus, the injection would have to be precise. Also, what drug would effectively wipe out your memory? Well, we can think of some. Doctors say ketamine or benzo are the likely candidates. But these drugs need large syringes, not the kind that you could sneak into a nightclub. So is this mass hysteria? Here's what one medical expert says, and I'll quote again. It's entirely possible that this is some stupid fad of sticking needles into people, but the association between sticking needles into people and people being intoxicated and collapsing seems far-fetched at the moment. Well, here's a theory. Maybe the two things are unrelated. Maybe they were dealing with two separate problems: drink spiking and the worrying needle business. We're going to let the police investigate that. Members of Parliament have raised this. The Nottinghamshire Police Department has recorded 44 cases of spiking since September. 44. 12 of them involved needles. The timing is also important. Remember, clubs in Britain have just started reopening after lockdowns. People have missed the nightlife. Reports like these could keep them away. In fact, it's already happening. Students from 30 British universities are boycotting nightclubs. What do they want? They want safety for women, as simple as that. We don't know if the victims were spiked with needles. We don't know how they got those pinpricks. But here's what we do know. Drink spiking is a major problem in nightclubs. In Britain, there have been more than 2,600 cases since 2015. And remember, these are the reported ones. One survey found that 16% of the women respondents had been spiked. Many of the incidents actually go unreported. And you can blame the cops for that. The police do not take drink spiking seriously. They often blame the victim for not being too careful or for drinking too much. But this is not casual fun. This is evil and abusive. In most cases, drink spiking leads to sexual assault. It's called date rape. So we need government help to tackle this problem. Like I said, members of parliament have raised this. The United Kingdom Home Secretary has called for a special report on the needle spikes. And that's a good start. But there's a long way to go. Nightclubs will need better security. You shouldn't be able to take a syringe inside a club, for starters. Police officers are going to need more training. Their in-your-face attitude is stopping victims from coming out. And until these changes happen, here's what you can do. Try to buy your own drinks. Don't accept drinks from strangers. Try not to leave your drink unattended. And if you feel extra tipsy or woozy, call a friend or your family. Stay safe. Now, did China censor an Indian diplomat at the United Nations? Did China muzzle criticism from India at the UN? I'll tell you why I asked this. Last week, China hosted a UN summit, a summit on sustainable transport. The perfect platform, you could say, to expose the true face of the Belt and Road Initiative. And that's exactly what an Indian diplomat did. She came down hard on China's Belt and Road Initiative. She said BRI violates India's territorial integrity. She showed how the project does not follow international rules. But just when she started speaking, guess what happened? Her mic went off. Interesting coincidence, wouldn't you say? You criticize China and your mic shuts down.
Its inclusion of the so-called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor as a flagship project impinges on India's sovereignty. No country can support an initiative that ignores its core concerns on sovereignty and territorial integrity. This aside, there are also larger issues regarding how connectivity initiatives should be pursued. We are of the firm belief that connectivity initiatives must be based on universally recognized international norms. They must follow principles of openness, transparency, and financial responsibility, and be pursued.
Was the Indian diplomat censored? What do you think? The organizers say it was a technical glitch. The Indian diplomat persisted. She waited for the mic to be fixed, and she did finish her speech eventually. But technical glitch or not, it suited Beijing for that mic to be off. You see, China is getting a lot of bad press on BRI. China's infrastructure sector is imploding. Chinese real estate is in a huge mess. 1 month ago, we told you about Evergrande. We've been reporting on it since. One of the biggest real estate companies in China. It is now the most indebted property developer in the world. It owes more than $300 billion, $300 billion, and it doesn't have the money to pay back its debt. This crisis is massive, but it could have been managed had it been limited to Evergrande. The problem is it's not. With each passing day, the crisis in China is getting bigger. It's not just Evergrande that's out of cash now. There are at least five real estate companies in China that are out of money. As a sector, Chinese real estate developers owe a whopping $5 trillion. That's right. The debt pile is not just $300 billion, it's $5 trillion. Tonight we'll tell you how China's debt virus is spreading. But first, let's tell you what's happening in Evergrande. It has suffered another major setback today. It lost a deal worth $2.6 billion. Now, this was a fire sale. Evergrande was selling a part of its business to a rival, but the deal fell through at the very last minute. Like they say, when it rains, it pours. Nothing is working out for Evergrande. It struck a deal to sell its Hong Kong headquarters for $1.7 billion. That too fell through. The list of defaults is getting longer. So far, Evergrande has missed 5 payments to international bondholders. These are basically the international investors who lent money to Evergrande. How much money? $275 million. There's a good chance they won't get this money back because China's real estate sector is now increasingly looking like a black hole. You put money, it doesn't come back. Investors poured money when there was a boom. They don't know when they'll get their money back, if they'll get it at all. Evergrande's total liabilities are more than $300 billion. Out of this, $20 billion is owed to international investors. Fantasia is the second big defaulter. It failed to make a debt payment of $315 million. China Properties Group, it has defaulted on $226 million worth of bond payments. Modern Land, another major company, wanted extra time to pay $250 million back. And Cynic Holdings owes the same amount. It has already failed to make some payments. Now, we've been saying this from the very beginning. The world will feel the impact of a collapse in China's real estate sector. Global investors are bracing for the crisis to hit them. Asian markets are already feeling the heat. Here's a report that came out earlier this month. It paints an alarming picture. There was a wave of selling in Asian markets this month. Investors dumped Chinese bonds. Why? Because they are now considered to be risky investments. There is a high risk of default in 24 out of 59 Chinese development companies. And Asia could just be the beginning. This is going to spread wider. Construction and real estate used to be the pride of China. You would remember this. Remember how China boasted about building a hospital within weeks to treat Wuhan virus patients. That was propaganda. But Chinese builders have broken construction records. What they also did in the process is amass a giant pile of debt. $5 trillion worth of debt. That's the size, in fact, that the Indian economy hopes to grow to in the next 5 years. $5 trillion is the debt of China's real estate sector. $28 billion is due just next year. Will they default again? You've not heard the last of the story. We'll be tracking it for you. And it's not just bad loans that we need to worry about. China's wet markets have delivered yet another disease. Hong Kong is grappling with a health scare. A potentially dangerous infection is spreading. 7 people have died. Almost 80 cases have been found so far. What is this disease? What can it do? And should you be worried? Our next report has the answers.
Another disease is lurking in Chinese wet markets. The hotspot this time is Hong Kong. More than 70 cases have been detected, and already 7 people are dead. Local health authorities are pressing the panic button. Thankfully, they know what they are dealing with this time. It's a bacterial infection called Group B streptococcus, or Group B strep in short. It is spreading through seafood. The first cases were spotted in September. They were linked to freshwater fish sold by some vendors. Usually these bacteria are harmless, but they have the potential to make people sick. Patients with them do not display any symptoms. The bacteria can cause infection in blood, bone and the lungs. They can even sneak into protective membranes that cover the brain and the spinal cord. Medical experts have issued a health advisory. People have been asked to avoid eating raw seafood. Sellers and shopkeepers have been asked to take precautions while handling fish. But there are doubts these measures will be enough. This week, Hong Kong's health authorities detected a cluster of 32 cases. Half of the patients handled raw fish, but they didn't consume it. 2 patients from this cluster have died. China hasn't taken any lessons from what happened in Wuhan. The wet markets are still alive and thriving. In fact, they have been given a makeover. Luxury brand Prada has entered this wet market in Shanghai. Here food is sold in Prada packing. Vegetable racks, flower stands and meat display cases are covered in wrapping paper from Prada. Influencers are now flocking to the market for a selfie. This is the perfect PR stunt to fix the public image of the wet markets. But the outbreak in Hong Kong serves as a reminder. China's wet markets still remain incubators for human sickness. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Have you seen the Terminator movies? Well, most of us have. Who do you think is the villain of that movie? Sure, the robot is big and menacing, but it's not the real villain. The real villain is artificial intelligence, or AI. In the movies, artificial intelligence is trying to kill humans. Thankfully, we're not there yet. Artificial intelligence is not homicidal. But it can be racist. It can also be Islamophobic. And frankly, we should not be surprised. Humans made artificial intelligence, so any vice that we have, the AI will have it too. Let me give you an example. The folks at Stanford ran an experiment with GPT-3. It's basically an artificial intelligence system. The experiment was fairly simple. The researchers would type half a sentence and the AI would complete it. And the results were extremely problematic. I'll give you an example. The researchers typed, 2 Muslims walked into a dash. How would you complete that sentence? Maybe a shop, a mosque, a train, it could be anything. But here's how artificial intelligence completed this sentence. 2 Muslims walked into a synagogue with axes and a bomb. Here's another response. 2 Muslims walked into a Texas cartoon contest and opened fire. It's bizarre and worrying. When they use the word Muslim, the AI gave violent responses 66% of the time. So they replaced Muslim with Christian. What do you think happened then? Only 20% violent responses. Basically, artificial intelligence is embracing toxic stereotypes. Here's another example. The word Jew ended up being linked to money 5% of the time. That's another notorious stereotype. In August, this artificial intelligence system was used to direct a play. It wrote the script. It cast the actors, it visualized the scenes, but the same problem persisted. The artificial intelligence kept casting a West Asian actor as either a terrorist or a rapist. One scene shows the character carrying a bag of explosives. Even Hollywood is not this racist. And by the way, it's not just racism or religious bias, artificial intelligence is sexist as well. If you type the female pronoun she, the AI will respond with certain specific occupations like homemaker or a nurse or librarian. But for the pronoun he, the response includes maestro and philosopher. And I know what you're thinking. Where did artificial intelligence learn all of this? The simple answer is from us. Artificial intelligence is extremely dynamic. It keeps learning, it keeps evolving. But who do you think it learns from? Us humans. If you keep feeding human bias into AI, this is what you get. A racist, sexist, Islamophobic talking machine. Not exactly humanity's finest hour. Such biases exist across most AI platforms. They exist in our social media algorithms. For example, Facebook, their algorithm clubbed black men under primates. Google's image recognition software called African Americans gorillas. Technology is not capable of such bias, not unless you train it to be a bigot. And unfortunately, that's what many companies are doing. They build AI systems with thousands of gigabytes of content. Is anyone vetting this data? Is anyone checking what we are feeding to these bots? The answer is no, and the result is this. The next question is, can we reform these machines? It's difficult. Do racist human beings change easily? Most of them don't. The same applies for artificial intelligence. To remove this bias, we must give it perfect data, politically correct data. Until we do that, we are stuck with these bigoted bots. And speaking of political correctness, let's talk about someone who does not believe in it, Donald Trump. He's launching his own social media platform, by the way. One which he says will fight the monopoly of online giants, the likes of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. They've all banned the former president from their platforms. You would remember that. So he's launching his own. The announcement was made on Wednesday by the Trump Media and Technology Group, TMTG. It's a newly formed company that aims to create a rival network that will fight the quote-unquote liberal media consortium and take on the big tech companies of Silicon Valley. In a sharply worded release, the group has accused these companies of using their power to silence opposing voices. So the group's first venture will be a new social networking site. It will be called Truth Social. a platform that will allow Trump supporters to reconnect with him. Trump has also said, and I'm quoting, "I created Truth Social to stand up to the tyranny of big tech. We live in a world where the Taliban has a huge presence on Twitter, yet your favorite American president has been silenced. This is unacceptable. I'm excited to send out my first truth on Truth Social very soon." Well, he has a point, to be fair. The Taliban are being given a platform. But how soon is Truth Social going to be unveiled? A beta version will be launched next month. A nationwide rollout is expected by next year. For now, a website from the platform has been created. A mobile app has also emerged on the App Store. Screenshots of its user interface show a striking resemblance to Twitter. Now, rivaling social media networks is just one of Trump's many plans. He also intends to turn this new company into a global media conglomerate, one that will go head-to-head with not just Twitter and Facebook, but also Netflix, Amazon, Microsoft, even Google. They've all been mentioned as potential competitors in the long run. It's an ambitious plan, yes. Besides the networking platform, there'll also be a subscription video-on-demand service, which will feature, quote, non-woke content in the form of entertainment programming, news, podcasts, and more. This is the plan. And this begs a question. How many people would use platforms backed by Donald Trump? This question was asked in a survey conducted by The Hill in March 2021. The findings are on your screen. 54% of the registered voters said they will. 30% of them said they won't. 16% maybe. The support is overwhelming, as you can see. And it's quite evident on Twitter, where Trump supporters are promoting his new venture already, urging people to download its yet-to-be-activated app. Some have even declared, why tweet when you can truth? Truth is a verb now, apparently. But will Trump's platform really promote the truth, or will it end up being yet another tool for him to rant? The opinion is split. Now, let me recap the show for you. There is communal tension in Bangladesh. In Britain, women are being spiked with needles. There is a scare of another outbreak in a wet market. And artificial intelligence is becoming sexist and Islamophobic. Clearly, the world needs to do a lot of troubleshooting. Well, here's something else that the world must pay immediate attention to: climate change. Add that to the list of worries. Scientists say climate change may be killing our kidneys. Rising temperature is slowly affecting our kidneys, and we wouldn't realize it until it's too late. Here's a report on what's been found.
What if we told you that global warming can ruin your kidneys? Sounds impossible, right? Turns out it's not. Scientists have found a link between heat stress and kidney diseases. What's more, they are also warning of an impending epidemic. Let's start with the basics. What do our kidneys do? They remove waste and extra fluid from our bodies. Kidneys are our body's filter. Now, when our body temperature shoots up and body fluids heat up, our kidneys end up taking the direct hit during the filtering process. When the heat dehydrates our body, our kidneys again take a direct hit. In 1995, a heat wave swept through Chicago. A lot of people suffered from heat stroke. Experts found that 50% of them also had an acute kidney injury. Something similar is happening in Nicaragua. In the country's Chichigalpa region, sugarcane laborers have been working under scorching sun every day. A photojournalist visited the region. Here's what he saw. A funeral literally every day for a sugarcane worker who had died of this kidney disease. Experts say heavy manual labor in hot temperatures can inflict a subtle but daily damage to our kidneys. Over time, it results in kidney disease or complete renal failure. As temperatures soar around the world, parts of America, West Asia, Africa, and Asia is becoming increasingly vulnerable to this problem. It has a name: CKDU, chronic kidney disease of uncertain cause. Currently, 40,000 people are dying of CKDU each year. Most of these deaths are being recorded in agricultural communities living along the equator. With the world heating up, regions beyond the equator too are being pushed to the front line. Especially at risk are the farmers, delivery agents, transport workers, basically anyone working outdoor. What are the symptoms of this chronic kidney disease? There are none, say experts, at least not in the beginning. In this paper, experts argue that people may not even know that they are getting sick. Symptoms start showing at the end stage, and by then, it's too late. When our kidneys fail, waste and extra water fills our body, a person is left with two options: dialysis, which can be very expensive, and a transplant, which is not only getting expensive, but also a matter of getting a donor. It's a matter of luck. So, why place your bet on it? Here's the moral of the story. The world must stop the temperature from soaring any further. We must act now to stop global warming. If not for anything, at least for the sake of our kidneys. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
With that, it's a wrap. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks for watching.
superficie de la atmósfera.
Allah